Okay troops, so welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a reaction to China sending killer robots with machine guns mounted on top of them in Tibet. It's to fuel the conflict with them in India. So let's just get straight into this one, guys. This is some Terminator shit right here. Once you know the robots are coming, I mean, that's a different era of war. That's all I'll say.
Now, Chinese soldiers stationed along the border with India have got some new weapons they were struggling to operate in the high altitudes. So China is bringing in robots to help. China is deploying robotic weapons to the border. These are machine guns on wheels, and they can be fired using a remote. Beijing's decision to give robots to the PLA could have dangerous implications for the world. Our next report tells you about this.
Right, so in terms of how India conduct themselves in the mountains, they're some of the best mountaineers in the world, guys, okay? They're really, really good at operating in high altitude. The Chinese have admitted that they're not so good and everyone was getting altitude sickness, so they've had to send robots. That's quite worrying, troops, okay? It's an escalation of force, you know, when you're using a robot instead of a human. Robots don't have feelings. It's easier to have less feelings when the human element behind the remote controller is, thousands of miles away in some cases, controlling the robot. So this is quite an escalation of force. I wonder how India is going to respond to this. If you know, drop a comment below.
There is a new threat from China. It is not a battalion of soldiers or wolf warrior diplomats. It's these machines. Initially, they would remind you of remote-controlled car toys. But look closely, these robots can do a lot more. They are equipped with a machine gun. Chinese soldiers can fire this gun from a distance and without any wires. There are cameras too, to watch what the adversaries are doing.
Okay, so it's gonna obviously, they're trying to ramp up the way they do things over there. There's a lot of dispute about land and borders and all of that. There has been since the beginning of time with China and India. There's a constant standoff at certain borders, and it's all about control and wanting to gain superiority within that area. And China seems to be doing it by saying, you know what, we're going to take our people out of the equation, put robots there. What are you going to do with robots? The only thing I can see India doing in this circumstance is probably having to match them and taking their individual soldiers out and replacing them with robots themselves, because surely a human being is no match for a robot, okay? Especially with the current technology of robots. It's quite advanced. I mean, look at this one here. It's climbing stairs. It's got a GPMG 762 belt-fed weapon system on it. It's dangerous, guys. This is stupid. The world is going nuts.
China calls this vehicle the Shark Claw. 88 of these have been deployed in Tibet. Shark Claw has a partner. It's the Mule 200. This is a transport vehicle, so not as lethal as the Shark Claw, but the Mule would be very useful for the PLA. It can be used to transport valuable supplies like ammunition. China has deployed around 120 of these in Tibet. Robots are now joining the People's Liberation Army. Their induction is a prelude to something more sinister. For now, a soldier will operate these robots. But in the future, China wants weapons with a mind of their own.
Right, so they're probably talking about artificial intelligence integration with these weapon systems. If that happens, then it truly is like Terminator, Skynet. All right. We don't really have a step back from that scenario, though. That's what people don't understand. The step forward might seem quite easy, going into robotics and using them on the battleground, but there's not an easy step back from that. Once you commit to going down that route, everyone has to do it. And then, you know, it's a real dangerous game to play. You know, we've seen how the arms race can work with different countries. You know, it gets out of control, leading all the way up to nuclear weapon systems being developed. But in this case, if we start developing robots at a crazy pace, and then they start getting their hands on the battlefield, then I don't know. I just think that's a real dangerous world to be in. It's literally like living in Terminator land, okay? And these films seemed quite far-fetched 20, 30 years ago. But as the months and years go by now and seeing escalations from different countries such as China, it's not hard to imagine, guys, that that's going to be the future. I would say in the next 10, 15 years, it's going to probably replace a lot of our military personnel out there. I mean, you look at Great Britain, our military is downsizing massively in terms of its actual personnel. You know, I can definitely see this taking off in a bad way.
PLA wants weapons with artificial intelligence. Beijing is moving swiftly to acquire such capabilities. The efforts began in 2017 when China unveiled a new artificial intelligence development plan. It advocated the use of AI in the military. Specific applications were listed out, like providing support to command and decision-making, military deductions, and development of defense equipment and related application.
Right, but that's when you know that's exactly where it will be used. When they're denying its use within certain areas, that's when you know it's probably already being used within that area. I mean, you'd need to tell me they wouldn't use AI to develop weapon systems further. I think it's one of the first things you'd want to do with artificial intelligence is how can I develop this weapon system to be more dangerous, to be more effective? It just makes sense to me. And in terms of command decisions and stuff like that, maybe it's not at the very top, but definitely at the lower end of the scale, I think they would use artificial intelligence and trust that it can make the right decision, you know?
Private sector was roped in to accelerate these efforts. Chinese big tech companies like Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, Xiaomi, and Huawei were labeled as AI champions. The PLA stands to benefit from the rapid strides these companies make. Already, different wings of the Chinese military are working on specific projects. The PLA ground force is developing robotics for the military. The Navy is working on autonomous submarines, while the Air Force is developing drones with an ability to think. These advancements should...
Well, that's not really any news at all then. Autonomous submarines and drones that can think for themselves. It's kind of already there now. I mean, you can get a drone that thinks for itself to some degree. As a civilian, it's on the open market. Anyone can get one. My drone that I've got is quite capable of thinking for itself to a certain degree, and it's literally a very cheap piece of kit. So that's nothing new. That's already developed, guys. Don't be foolish and thinking that kind of stuff doesn't exist already. It does. That's just my humble opinion on it anyway.
Raise an alarm worldwide. Unfortunately, world powers are still ignoring the threat. This month,
I don't think the world powers are ignoring the threat. I just don't think those that know will not really take this as artificial intelligence with robots. It's like, well, yeah, okay, we've already been doing that. America's probably been doing it a long, long time. So maybe it's just a matter of, well, yeah, okay, China, well done for catching up type thing. But the likes of India is what I'll be worried about. How are they going to respond to this? They've got a good military. They've got the ability to get funds from the government, but the military is widely, it's dispersely funded, all right? You've got certain regiments of the Indian military who are quite kitted out, who've got a good budget, and then you've got other parts of the Indian military who just have terrible kit and equipment, not the greatest of training. So it's quite dispersed in terms of their financing there. So I wonder how they're going to actually respond to this. I don't see them responding by putting more manpower on the mountains. I just think that would be pointless. What's the point of having 100 men to one robot that could just literally wipe you out? I don't think there's any point in that. So I think India's probably going to have to re-gauge and kind of configure how they're going to do things on those borders, because they'll certainly have to change something. That's a fact.
United Nations tried to open negotiations for an international treaty on autonomous weapons. They failed. None of major weapons-producing countries were willing to have a conversation. These stonewalling tactics work to Beijing's advantage. The PLA gets more time to perfect the AI technology and develop killer robots, weapons that could make the world a more dangerous place. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Well, there's one thing that I agree with there. It will make the world a more dangerous place, and it makes you wonder why they'd be developing this in the first place, why the news would be portraying it as such a bad thing. It's I don't know. I just think that these agendas are already set out in stone, and they're just waiting to release it on people. In terms of killer robots, I think they already exist. On the battle space, we're probably going to see it a lot more. There's only one good thing short term that comes out of this. It gets our soldiers off the ground and puts robots in their place. But mid to long term, our soldiers will have to go back on the ground anyway, because it's just the way things work. But yeah, Terminator, I guess the story sounded stupid 20, 30 years ago, but it's becoming more real day by day in the Chinese Tibetan district. But guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for getting us over 200,000 subscribers. And if you haven't yet checked out our memberships, then please join the club. Press the join button and become a member, guys. I'd really appreciate your support. But other than that, thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.